The shelter echoed with noise, barking, howling, paws scraping against metal bars. Puppies bounced with excitement, tails wagging, begging for attention. Families walked down the aisle, children laughing, pointing, and pressing their hands against the cages. Dogs barked louder, each one pleading to be noticed, each one desperate to be chosen. But in the very last kennel sat a dog who made no sound. His head rested heavily on his paws, his dark eyes watching quietly as life passed him by. He didn't jump, didn't bark, didn't wag his tail like the others. He only sat, his silence speaking louder than all the noise around him. The shelter staff had grown used to the heartbreaking sight. Day after day, families walked right past him. They wanted puppies, they wanted energy, they wanted dogs that looked playful and perfect in their eyes. This one, though, he was older, his coat duller, his spirit quieter. To them, he didn't stand out. Still, every time a family approached, his eyes lit with a flicker of hope. But when they turned away, as they always did, the light in his eyes dimmed once more. The staff whispered sadly, "Why does nobody want him?" One Saturday afternoon, a young couple strolled through the shelter, their little boy tugging eagerly at their hands. He rushed to the kennels, pointing at the bouncing puppies, his laughter filling the air. When they passed the quiet dog in the corner, he barely glanced at him. "Not that one," the boy whispered, his eyes fixed on a fluffier pup nearby. The parents nodded, moving on without hesitation. The next day, another family arrived, this time with teenage daughters. They wanted a dog that would keep up with their runs, their busy lives. They stopped at his kennel, studying him for only a moment. "Too calm," one said. "Too old," another added. And just like that, they were gone. Time after time, it was the same story. Families would pause, take a quick look, and move on. Some said he looked sad. Others thought he seemed strange. To the visitors, he was a dog with no spark, no future. But to the shelter workers, every rejection felt like a knife twist. They knew he wasn't broken. He was just waiting for someone who could see deeper. Yet family after family passed him by, leaving his kennel and his heart emptied. It was late afternoon when a man named Daniel walked into the shelter. He wasn't there to adopt, at least not at first. He had only come along with a friend who was thinking of rescuing a dog. As they strolled down the long aisle of kennels, the same chorus of barking filled the air. Excited paws pressed against the bars, tails wagged furiously, and eager eyes followed every step. But Daniel's attention drifted away from the noise. In the back corner, half hidden in shadows, he noticed the quiet dog sitting still, his gaze fixed on the floor. While every other dog clamored for attention, this one remained motionless, almost invisible. Something about his silence pulled Daniel in. He slowed his pace, stepping closer. The dog lifted his head, and their eyes met, tired eyes, filled with sadness, but also with something else, a flicker of longing. Daniel crouched down, resting his hand against the bars. Unlike the others, he didn't rush past. He looked carefully. That's when he noticed it, a small, worn tag hanging from the dog's collar. It was scratched, almost forgotten, but still legible. For reasons he couldn't explain, Daniel leaned closer. Deciding to read it, Daniel's fingers brushed against the cool metal bars as he leaned in closer, eyes narrowing on the tiny tag dangling from the dog's collar. It was scratched from years of wear, the letters faint but still visible under the shelter's dim light. Slowly, he read the words aloud. "If you're reading this, my owner loved me." The sentence stopped him cold. For a moment, the noisy shelter seemed to fade into silence. He blinked, making sure he hadn't imagined it. But the words were there, simple, etched with care, carrying a weight that pierced straight through his chest. He looked at the dog again, at those sad, waiting eyes. Suddenly, everything made sense. This wasn't a dog who had never known love. This was a dog who had lost it. The stillness, the quiet demeanor, the sadness, it was grief. He wasn't unwanted. He was heartbroken. Daniel called over a staff member, pointing at the tag. "Did anyone notice this before?" he asked quietly. The worker shook her head. "Most people don't look that closely. They just see a dog that doesn't stand out." Her voice softened. "But he did have an owner once. A very special one." As Daniel held the dog's gaze, the truth weighed on him. This wasn't rejection. This was loss, carved into a single line of metal. And in that moment, Daniel realized this dog didn't need pity. He needed someone who could give him a reason to hope again. The shelter worker's expression softened as she stepped closer to Daniel. "His name is Max," she said quietly. "He wasn't always like this. A few months ago, he had an owner who adored him. They were inseparable, every walk, every meal, every night spent side by side. Max was her whole world." Daniel listened carefully, his hand still resting near the bars of the kennel. The dog's ears twitched at the sound of his name, as though it carried memories too heavy to bear. But then, the worker continued, her voice lowering. "His owner passed away suddenly. A car accident. Max was brought here by neighbors who didn't know what else to do. Since then, he's been waiting. Not for just any family. He's been waiting for her." Daniel's chest tightened. The rejection he had witnessed earlier wasn't about the dog being unwanted. It was about people not understanding. They saw a quiet, withdrawn animal. But in truth, Max wasn't broken. He was mourning, holding on to the last piece of the love he had lost. Daniel swallowed hard, his heart aching for the lonely soul in front of him. For the first time, he understood why Max seemed invisible. He wasn't waiting for attention. He was waiting for someone who could see his pain. Daniel stood silently, staring at Max. The dog hadn't moved much, yet his eyes told a story Daniel couldn't ignore. That small tag, the words etched into it, and the truth of his past had struck something deep inside him. This wasn't just another shelter dog. This was a soul carrying a legacy of love, now shattered by loss. The staff member gave a gentle sigh. Most people want an easy dog. They don't see the treasure he is. They only see the silence. Daniel crouched lower, his voice soft. "Hey, buddy." Max lifted his head slowly, their eyes locking again. It was a quiet connection, unspoken yet powerful. In that moment, Daniel knew that he turned to the staff, his decision clear. "I'll take him," he said firmly. "He's coming home with me." The worker's eyes welled with tears. "Finally," she whispered. "Someone understands." The first night at Daniel's home was quiet. Max paced the living room cautiously, sniffing every corner, his paws hesitant on the unfamiliar floor. He kept glancing at the door, as though expecting to be taken back. Daniel gave him space, sitting nearby, speaking softly, letting trust build slowly. Up by the third day, something changed. Max's tail wagged. Just once, timidly, but enough to make Daniel smile. Later, when Daniel knelt to refill his bowl, Max pressed his head gently against Daniel's hand. It was small, but it was a beginning. Weeks passed, and the dog who had once sat silently in a shelter corner began to blossom. His eyes grew brighter, his steps lighter. On walks, he trotted proudly at Daniel's side. At night, he curled at his feet, finally resting. Max hadn't forgotten his past, but he had found something new. Hope. Max's journey was proof that every life, no matter how overlooked, carries a story worth saving. He wasn't unwanted. He was simply waiting for someone who cared enough to see beyond the silence. Daniel became that someone, and in return, he gained a loyal friend who would never stop loving him. Right now, countless dogs like Max sit in shelters, each with a hidden story, each waiting for their second chance. Maybe their tag isn't written in metal. It's written in their eyes. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories.